Hello everyone, I've really got no choice but to just jump right into the speed build here because there is so much ground to cover. This episode is nearly an hour long, something that I didn't really anticipate in a way, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to break up any of these speed builds in separate parts here as I kind of feel like that's sort of tedious. So yeah, we are just jumping right in here, and for those of you just joining me and just discovering the channel, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. So yeah, we are continuing the build out of Sim City, and it is my custom Sims 3 world, and today it is a huge project because, well, firstly, if you remember, if you've been watching the Create a World series, you know that I've placed a 64 by 64 lot on top of 3 sets of tracks here. And today I am actually building out the library lot just to finish off the government campus neighborhood towards the north here. So in the last episode, we just kind of completed the observatory tower, and today we are building a mid-rise structure that has got a lot of girth and a lot of width to it. So yeah, I have to end up using pretty much all of the 64 by 64 tiles on this lot. It takes a really long time just because I was really picky about the design and how I wanted it to look. And to be honest, by the end of this episode, I'm still kind of wondering about the colors that I used for the exterior, but the interior I actually enjoyed. So I'm very happy with the way that it turned out towards the end here, but we've got a long way before that. So let me explain the vision a little bit here. The vision for this lot really started in Create a World. In Create a World, what I had to do is I had to add in the train tracks and the tunnels in order to really give that illusion that trains kind of go underneath, under the ground. They pop up throughout Old Town, then they go underground again to pop up here for commuter and long distance trains. And I really wanted to actually have something that kind of made sense in a from a city perspective, in that the train tracks that were placed in Old Town were going somewhere. Well, here's the destination that they're going at. They're going at this grand station. That's really the busiest train station in all of Sim City because it connects all of those long distance and commuter trains to the subway station that you'll see in a little bit here. What makes this build particularly complicated is that I have to build with several levels, and so you'll see as the build goes on that those several levels kind of they kind of trip me up a little bit. And and yeah, you'll just kind of see me just sort of work with that dynamic there. Another thing that was kind of unfortunate and something that I couldn't change is that both the west and the east sides aren't exactly even. They're off by 1 square, and a lot of that is due to the train track placement from Create a World. But like I've mentioned before, you guys would have known, if you've been following with my Create a World journey, is that I never actually had access to the editing game mode. So I couldn't actually edit in game, adjust the tracks, and then go back into Create a World, as that function was just not available for me. So yeah, the train track placement really dictated the rest of how the lot was built out to be, and unfortunately, it did impact it in a negative way, but it only threw off one of the squares by 1. So, out of all the things that could have gone wrong, that was probably the least of my worries there. So yeah, you'll see a little bit of uneven placement from the west versus the east side, but luckily those really aren't the focal points of this little library project. Now, before I continue on with the vision, I just wanted to explain why I chose this community lot as a library as opposed to anything else, as opposed to a visitors allowed or something else like that. And the reason being for that is because the visitors allowed and the visitors not allowed lots are like they're a community lot designation in The Sims 3, and I find that they pair best with like those rabbit hole buildings for careers and such. So I'll be placing like a visitors allowed lot for the spa, for example, or a visitors not allowed lot for the what do you call it, the criminal hideout. So that's really where I think that EA intended for those kind of lots to be used. And I also really needed a library in this world anyways, just because I felt like it would complete the government campus a little more. Yeah, it would be a better lot to actually complete the government campus with. And I also felt like I can also really make this station become a jewel in the SimCity crown in terms of like architecture and interior design. So I really wanted something big and bold for this, and I wanted Sims to actually use it. Like, it isn't just a lot that exists here just to exist. It actually exists here for a purpose, and that purpose, from a gameplay perspective, is that it functions as the library. And you guys will see how that all comes about. But yeah, there are really like 3 big parts to this, I'm calling it Central Station Library for obvious reasons, because it's like the easiest name there. But there are really 3 parts to this project and what makes it so gargantuan. The first part is the platform levels, so how the platforms actually interact with the rails. There's the concourse level, like how do you direct vast amounts of foot traffic to the platforms. And then there's the library levels, which kind of sits on top of everything else. And then, of course, like there's a mezzanine level if we really want to get technical, and, you know, a subway level as well. So there's a lot of different elevations that are having to be played here, and something that I am having to work with. And I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to elevations, but I felt like I certainly did it justice. Like, I didn't have any weird things happening to the terrain, like outside the building, like it dipping down a little bit or something like that. I've had that in previous builds that I've done for SimCity, but yeah, here it did not occur, which was something that I'm very proud of, if I'm going to be completely honest here. By the way, like, if the episode seems like it is going much faster than what I'm explaining on screen, you'd be right. I actually had to like double the speed that I normally pace my episodes at. So normally I do my speed builds on a 4x speed, but sometimes, like for bigger builds, I had to put it at an 8x speed, so doubling it. And, you know, if you go beyond like 8x, then it just starts to look it just doesn't start to look good. So, you know, what on screen is not necessarily like what I'm going to be talking about, so I do apologize for the mismatch there. But yeah, when I was taking into account like the different levels, I definitely wanted different terrain heights, like for the foundations for each of the different levels, at least for the concourse and the platform levels. And that's really where it starts to get complicated, like when you're building with different levels like that. And, you know, maybe it's complicated in the way that I did it, because I kind of had to sneak in this lower leveled platform or set of platforms in the middle of a foundation that's actually higher. So yeah, that kind of makes things a little more complicated. Like the rest of the station building wraps around these platforms, whereas normally I think that what regular structures would do, they would just kind of like terrace downwards or upwards. I hope that's making some sort of sense here. But I think that just like the form that this building was forced to take just because of the tracks just helped to make it a little more complicated. And that's really where and that's kind of where this adventure really begins. Because I had to get the stairs to all look properly, and I had to make sure that it wasn't indenting the actual terrain surrounding the building, which was another thing that I had to take into consideration. But yeah, the platforms themselves, you know, I know that I have this really weird relationship with like dummy rooms and dummy buildings, meaning like buildings or rooms that actually don't properly function. But with the station platforms, they had to be that dummy room because there's no way we can actually get functional trains in the game. I mean, it's on a wish list somewhere out there for me, but couldn't actually get, like, there's no way to get functional trains, and I don't even think that a mod exists out there to put trains on the track. I could be wrong on that, so feel free to drop that comment below if I am indeed wrong, linking to some sort of a magical train mod. That would be interesting to just kind of take a look into, but I like the way that the platforms did turn out, like design-wise and structurally. One thing that I really wanted to try to convey is just that this station building, like Central Station Library, was built in several different parts and like different points in time. So the first point in time would be the actual platforms of the station. So you have all these trains coming into the city, and perhaps like these train platforms were used priorly as industrial uses or for freight. And so yeah, these platforms would have been, like, if we're talking lore and historical sense, constructed before the rest of the structure, which is kind of why there are certain different things to it, and also why I use that old town brick again for the pillars within the platforms there, if it's not already showing. There is that like modern update to it, of course, being the glass roof, and I love the way that the glass roof turned out. Just by using both the greenhouse DLC from the Sims 3 store and also using the carpets from the from the Into the Future expansion pack. Like, I was really able to create a neat little effect there, like a neat little glass effect that I really liked. Whether it's cohesive or not is certainly up to debate, but I am one of those people that tries to limit my DLC and my downloads to like just 1 or 2 different sources, especially for objects, and that's just like something that I just personally do. I try not to stray too far away from the Sims 3 store when it comes to objects. And a big reason for that is because I feel like it's cohesively designed, like it all looks like it could be part of the same game, whereas you could download objects from a different website and it'll just kind of look out of place in your game. And actually, you guys will see one of the very few objects that I end up downloading for this lot here from outside of the Sims 3 store. And the best part is that it's for free, so I'll be sure to drop that link in the description so that you guys can check it out for yourselves. The way that I had to approach this build is something that I approach all of my builds with, and that's really like designing around the key pieces of infrastructure that I need to actually function. So in this case, I really had to make these train platforms make sense and how they connect with the concourse. So that obviously was the first order of business there. I also wanted to, again, you know, use staircases as a form to decorate. So I really wanted to have that higher platform, have a staircase to a lower platform, and then it finally touches the ground. So I really decided to, so that was another big case, another piece of infrastructure that I need to design around as well. There's also the subway station, which kind of does something funky to all of your floors above it, as you'll see me discover throughout this speed build here. So hopefully you'll catch that as we're just kind of flying by with the build. And then lastly, like the staircases inside was yet another piece of infrastructure that I wanted to be a focal point. So I kind of have to like design around that, and luckily, like I sort of have a vision in my mind as to how I wanted to all correlate to each other in a way that makes sense. And so yeah, when it comes to the references that I used for this Central Station library, obviously like New York's Grand Central Station was sort of the look and feel that I was going for, but also in terms of massing, I took inspiration from Melbourne's train station as well. So it's like in Melbourne, Australia. And then lastly, another piece of inspiration that sort of influenced, in a way, like in an unintentional way, I guess the color of the exterior was Waterfront Station in Vancouver, Canada. So those are like 3 pieces of references that I was using for different reasons. One being, I guess, sort of the interior. It turns out looking like nothing like Grand Central Station, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, but I feel like the massing sort of might have worked for the interior design. Anyways, But yeah, three different references for three different aspects of this build was really what I needed to use going forward here. When it comes to the staircases on the inside, again, that was another thing that I wanted to use as one of the decorative pieces of the lot. So when it comes to like building these older style things, it isn't all about and you would have seen this in the French colonial penthouse build that I did much earlier on in this series back in the old town times. But yeah, it was one of my first speed builds that I did for the channel. But yeah, one of the things like when building with those older styles is like if you use the right wall sconces, you don't necessarily have to over decorate and clutter everything. Like you can let your walls and also your floors do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of conveying that that space as being something very regal and very old and well put together and strong and sturdy and all that wonderful stuff that these older styles are. And so yeah, that was something that I had kept in mind as well. And you guys are going to really see me struggle with the floors and walls and trying to make a decision. Even with the exteriors, I was having a lot of issues with trying to make a decision there. And that goes also with the windows. I was just really struggling to find the right pair of windows that I wanted to put on this lot, because I wanted it to convey that Central Station Library in SimCity is a much older structure. It's from like the old town settlement times, and and I also wanted it to sort of like match the city hall and the police station just next to it. Obviously it clashes or juxtaposes, I should say, with the observatory from across the road, but that's kind of the point here, is just to like juxtapose like a lot of old with a little bit of new in the government campus neighborhood. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, at the end of this build, like I really feel like I was able to successfully convey that this was a structure that was built in an older time using that classical style, and that I didn't have to go overboard with statues or paintings or plants or any other decorative thing. It just really had to be all about the floors and the walls and making sure that they were marble and making sure that they actually looked like they would belong in a classically inspired structure. When I mentioned references, I should also probably mention that the references kind of came at different times, which is inconvenient if you are someone who designs, who builds structures and all that in your own life simulation games. But yeah, I kind of had the references come at different times. I really couldn't get like the exterior color looking right or the way that I wanted it to look, which is quite unfortunate, because even at the end of this build, I still don't really like the way that it looks just from that kind of perspective. I sort of went with a red like structure at the end of this, only because I wanted the brick pillars to sort of make more sense. But you know, actually, like now that I think about it, we don't really see the brick pillars on the station levels, so, or sorry, the train station platform levels. So it's kind of like, you know, I built that around probably for the wrong reasons. But that's the wonderful thing about like rewatching these videos and actually recording the audio to go on top of it, is that I get to sort of critique myself in a way that's that allows me to actually kind of fix some different things or try different things later on. Like I said before, I'm still very happy with the way that the library turns out, and the Central Station Library really just turns out as a vision. I feel like I still deliver on the vision, even if I don't have the coloring completely correct. And that's something as well that I just kind of wanted to touch upon, is that this, like, Sims 4 is honestly a beautiful game. We're in The Sims 3, by the way, but Sims 4 is a beautiful game. That's kind of all I'm going to give it credit for. And when it comes to The Sims 3, the one thing it kind of lacks in is aesthetics, whether that's like the Sims themselves or the actual objects and all that. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think that it is very playable and that the look and feel of The Sims 3 is actually still pretty great. I'm not trying to overly criticize it, but when you compare it to something like The Sims 4, I do think that The Sims 4 really does take the cake in terms of aesthetics. Right now, it takes the cake for aesthetics. When it began out, The Sims 4 was an absolute disaster, and I will not change my mind on that. But nowadays, The Sims 4 has been updated and has evolved into a very aesthetically pleasing game. And so, you know, a little bit of those aesthetics being applied here could have gone a long way in terms of the finished Central Station Library build. Again, it sucks that, you know, I wasn't really able to deliver this Central Station Library to the full extent of the vision that I had, but I'm also, you know, the same person that's not willing to go out and download objects and walls outside of the Sims 3 store. So I really, you know, I really had to make peace with that during the build when I was doing it. By the way, I record the audio separately from when I actually do the speed builds. It's not like I'm just talking a storm going through this, because I sped this thing up by like eight times the normal speed, and it's an hour long. So I put in quite a bit of time into building this world, into building this lot, excuse me. And it's just like, well, it took a lot out of me, and yeah, I'm not just talking the whole time here or making notes. I actually just kind of do these audio recordings on the fly, just as I see it. And yeah, I just thought I would kind of give you guys a little behind the scenes look into how I actually do things. But yeah, you'll see the inspiration from the Melbourne train station really come into play, like just in terms of the massing and the general structure. Like, I believe, if I remember correctly, I've actually been fortunate enough to actually visit Melbourne. The train station is more like not a direct, like not a squared off U shape like this one is, but it's more like it kind of goes off to one side, if that makes any sense. Like it's hard to describe it. It's like one of the extensions of the station just kind of flows a lot longer than the other side. So it's kind of asymmetrical in that sense, which makes it a very beautiful building. And you know, if I don't use it again as a reference at some point, I would be surprised. But what I wasn't able to use from that reference was the actual look of it. I wasn't actually able to use the wallpapers from it or to find a wallpaper that emulated it in some way. Maybe this is just me not being creative enough with the patterns and all of that, but it was very hard to find, because they use a lot of brickwork in the Melbourne train station, but it's also something that is very muted in terms of its color. Plus it's got like a little bit of like a faint pink or red to it. And you know, now that I'm looking at this and how this build actually ends up, perhaps my red is just a little too red. In fact, like I have an idea of like how I want to experiment with it just a little bit, just to see if I can get the red exterior to look a little more muted. Now we do have a color wheel, so I don't know where the excuse is coming from here, but yeah, like the Melbourne train station was certainly a reference that I used, especially for the massing of it. Like, even though the structures aren't a complete copy, like this Central Station Library isn't a carbon copy of the Melbourne train station, it does take a lot of inspiration just for having that U shape and just kind of using the masking from there along with bigger windows. Moving on from references, I do kind of want to talk about the functions of the floors a little bit more. The concourse level really connects passengers with the platforms, and it also connects them with other, with the library, of course, in the upper levels, and then also with the metro train station. So there has to be like a little bit of a transfer point, like a transit transfer point, if that makes any sense. So the idea with the concourse level here in this project is really just to give a lot of space so that it could handle like a large volume of Sims like passing through. Theoretically, in the game, definitely not going to function like this, let's be real here, but because I am sort of working with a space that is more like a dummy space or a dummy room. I really wanted it to be as realistic as possible. So that's really why in the concourse level, there aren't a whole lot of objects there. Sure, I do add in a cafe, and that's kind of a fun little addition there. It does spawn another NPC worker. So if you are looking to download this world, and if it's available at the time that I am recording this, just keep in mind that there are a lot of NPCs that are going to be spawning just to fill in these kind of jobs. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but the concourse level again was just designed to allow, in theory, a large volume of foot traffic through it. Because the thing with these train stations is that pedestrian flow is something that is highly considered. Like, can someone get from platform to the metro station within a decent amount of time, or vice versa? Or, you know, how does somebody get from the platform to outside? And so that's why I put in the different kinds of entrances that I did, is that there are multiple ways to actually get into the central station library. There are multiple ways to get out. And if you're on the concourse level, it's going to be a pretty quick walk. You're not going to be bumping into objects or anything like that. It's just going to be very straightforward. And that was really the idea there. Even with the construction of the cafe, instead of placing chairs and tables in the middle, I put them right up against the wall because you know, that cafe is really just like a quick bite to eat while you're waiting for your train, or, you know, if you are just a sim that's on the go and need to continue on and just need a quick little snack or something, you have that option there. There are also vending machines for that, but the vending machines I placed down there are mostly, in a way, they're mostly decorative, but vending machines totally function, so it's not like I'm placing down like fake vending machines on the platform levels. It just made more sense to have vending machines on the platform level as opposed to the concourse level, where someone could theoretically like wait and, you know, wait a little longer, or if they're early for a train or something, maybe they're getting picked up by family, they've got that option to get a quick bite to eat. And yeah, that's really the idea with the concourse level. Again, prioritizing passenger and foot traffic movement over everything else. It's very open air. It's got all of those archways and all that. And seeing as how like SimCity would, you know, even though the lore of The Sims is very ambiguous in terms of the climate it's set in, I imagine that because there are palm trees surrounding it, that at least in the government campus, it is going to be a little warmer. So it's not like the open air concept would be something that would feel out of place in a location like this. So that's really why I chose the doorways that I did. Plus the doorways were actually really large, and one of the only largest ones that I had in the game. So that's why I chose those gated doors, and I never used them before, so I was very happy to actually find a use for them. So yeah, concourse level, all about that passenger foot traffic movement. Even the subway station, like I feel like in terms of the order of when things were constructed, obviously the long distance train and commuter train platforms were constructed first, probably for freight originally, then converted for passenger. Then next would actually be the structure and the library itself, and then lastly would be the metro station connection, which is why it's got some modern twist to it, like just with the lightings that I used from Into the Future. I felt that those kind of made sense there. So the metro station is something that is incredibly functional. I actually love the fact that Sims can actually take the metro from the central station library to wherever they need to go. I've done some play testing and I just really like how that looks and feels. Oh, and that's another reason why I chose the library to be the central station library, or to be the central passenger station, is because libraries are open in The Sims 3 24/7. So Sims have access to it all the time. It's never going to close. So it's not like I'm placing a metro station in the middle of a community loft that's going to close after 9 p.m. Sims can come here anytime, any day, which I think reflects how frequently passenger trains and metro trains need to function in a large scale city. So that was another reason for it. just from a gameplay perspective there. But yeah, the concourse would be, like, speaking of libraries, I know that libraries are supposed to be quiet, right? Well, the concourse would definitely be the noisiest part of the structure, which is why I kept it on the lower level. And as I build out the library portions, you'll notice that I'm giving it functions that get quieter as they go up. But because there's a lot of foot traffic in the concourse level of this building, that's where I put the cafe, because cafes would make noise and all that. So I tried to keep like all the noisier activities just kind of on this lower level here. And as we get higher, that's when things get a lot quieter. So second floor of the library can be used in the west and east wings. Like I sectioned them off as private rooms to be used for meetings, but it's also like your computer library, because typing also has quite a bit of noise to it. And the assumption here is just that a lot of the people that would use the computers on the second floor of the library would either have headphones or noise canceling out devices with them, so they could tolerate the noise from the concourse down below and also the noise from everyone else that are typing on their computers or using technology. Plus, like, there are meeting rooms that one could book to just kind of have to yourself if you want to have a meeting. Again, those meeting rooms were dummy rooms at the end of the day, and I don't mean to just like completely fill this lot with dummy spaces, but that's just kind of the cards that I was dealt, considering the train tracks, like the train station platforms, were obviously going to be like a dummy space. And I also got a little lazy for the 2 rooms at the end there, so I just kind of made them into meeting rooms with a big table. Speaking of which, we don't have any round dining room tables in The Sims 3, which I found to be kind of interesting, or something that I've never really missed before until I went to go and make this meeting room. So hopefully it's showing on screen. If not, then you'll see it in the next coming clips here. Throughout this build, you're just going to see me jump around between working on several different things. This is just one of those projects where I did it unintentionally, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, I'll be working on something and I'll kind of get one thing done and then I'll go back and do something else. So you'll see me work on maybe the exterior and then move on to the platforms. There are a couple of reasons for that. One of them being is that the structure of the rest of the building does inform how the platforms work. Also, like, if I'm looking at putting in some entrances into the platform levels, then I also need to adjust the other areas of the station as well. So yeah, that's a couple of reasons why I do jump back and forth here and there. I also sometimes have to walk away from this project. I know that you'll see, like, with the cuts and all that, like throughout this video, that sometimes I'll end off doing something and then cut to something else. Well, that's because I've chosen to walk away at that point and come back. This was one of those larger builds. I wasn't, I'm really not trying to complain here, but I really wasn't given the aesthetic palette that I needed to in order to try to execute on the vision. Like, I think that the platforms turned out very well, but I also don't like exactly how the exterior looks. I'm not a big fan of the roof that I did. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I kind of have issues with it towards the end of the speed build here, but at the end of the day, I actually do feel like it does get pulled off. It's just that this build took a lot longer for me to actually try and get to come together because, like I mentioned before, I don't feel like I had all the right tools to execute on the vision that I really saw for this lot. So it's passable, like, it's functional, and I still love it. Like, I'm in love with the end result and how it turned out, but it wasn't exactly the vision that I had for it. And so yeah, you'll see me just kind of jump around here and there, moving back and forth to like try to work on a couple of areas and then move on to another area completely and then come back to the old area I was working on before. So it might be a little nauseating to watch, so I do apologize if that is not your cup of tea, but it was something that I really had to do just for my own sanity while in the game, and also, like, when I wasn't playing this world as well. So that was really the case here for me. Um, yeah, so the yellow like warning strips on the platforms themselves, I just kind of wanted to touch a little bit on it. I ended up using a metal, like the same one that I used in the Old Town Station build for the streetcar sitting on top of the rails. So if you remember that build, that was one that I really had to, that was one that I took inspiration from, and that's something that I want consistent throughout each of these builds here that use train station platforms. Speaking of train station platforms, there's only one build after this that has train station platforms. It'll make more sense as we get closer to it, but at the time that I'm going to release this video and the time that I'm going to line up the next couple of videos, we won't be getting to that build for a little while yet. But yeah, it's going to, it'll be another case where it might just be a dummy room for that build. But anyways, I am getting way too far ahead even speaking about it, if I'm gonna be completely honest. But yeah, I made sure to save these metal floors for those like warning strips. I don't know what the proper term is for them, but the warning strip for when you board the train, or maybe it's called a boarding strip. It's like it's on pretty much every train platform I've ever been on, so I clearly don't know what I'm talking about or what the actual technical term is called, but I saved it so that I can make the style consistent throughout for future builds that use train platforms, which is a good thing. Another thing that was very important to me with this build was how it looked at night. So the idea is that because this community lot is open 24/7, that it needs to be well lit because it's a concourse. It's the main train transit option here. Like, it's a huge transit hub is really what I mean to say, and so it's got to be well lit at all times. And that's really where all of those wall sconces that you'll eventually end up seeing me place come into play, is because I really wanted to use those as a decor that makes sense for the time period that this would have been constructed in, and B, as something that actually will be used to help provide light where it needed to be. The only place that is the darkest here is the station platforms, and I actually decided not to place any overhanging lights or any ceiling lights because the glass ceiling is 2 floors tall, and the light wouldn't actually reach the platform level that I would want it to. And I also feel like because everything else is so well lit around it, even the pillars, and that the trains themselves would be lit if they were to pull in, of which they won't because because this is a dummy room, right? You know, it would be well lit anyways. So that was kind of my defense there. That was my reason for not placing them. Of course, if you have a suggestion there, then feel free to drop it below in a comment. I'd be more than happy to read it. For those wondering, the windows that I use in the front came with the Sims 3 Supernatural expansion pack. So those came with those like really large French windows that you can kind of stack on top of each other. Absolutely love them, and I will be using them in mansion builds and in other builds as well. So yeah, if you're looking for where those were found, you can find them in the Sims 3 Supernatural expansion pack. And why I chose those windows is really because I felt like it fit the building properly, like with it being more classical take on a structure. And yeah, I just really wanted big windows that kind of looked into it. The actual like structure itself is pretty tall, like it's 4 stories tall, plus it's on a raised platform that has had its terrain raised. so yeah, there's a lot of height and a lot of presence to it. So I really wanted the windows to be to carry that same presence as well, to carry that larger than life kind of presence. Now, the important detail with those windows, those front-facing windows, is just that I put a chandelier behind them. Now, if that chandelier does not look familiar, you would be absolutely correct, because it is the one item that I have downloaded outside of the Sims 3 store. and I'm going to link it in the description box below, so you can look out for it there. I believe I got it off of Mod The Sims, if I remember correctly. The correct link will be put in the description box below, so just get it there. It is completely free, and it is, you know, in the world of The Sims 3, like the base game and the expansion packs and the DLCs, they really lack in the chandelier department. Like, they lack in that classical chandelier look. They have a couple of chandeliers here and there, which I think are okay. I think some of them are nice, but for the ones that I was looking for, the style that I was looking for, I was really looking for that classic crystal chandelier, and it was nowhere to be found, and I wasn't going to overuse that one chandelier object. And besides, the chandelier that came with the base game doesn't even reach down to 2 floors, so I really wasn't keen on using that one. So I found this chandelier object. I believe, again, it was on Mod The Sims, but again, the correct link will be posted in the description box, and I absolutely loved it. I used it here, and it comes in two there are 2 versions of the object. One is just a single floor chandelier, and the other is a multi-floor one. So I played around with it a little bit, and the single floor chandelier like kind of touches like the heads of Sims, so it is a little bulky in that kind of sense. So you really have to like place the single level one in the right place, but the multi-level one I absolutely just decided to use as the leading piece for the frontier. so yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I actually think that it fits the style of The Sims 3 pretty well, but that's just me. But yeah, again, check it out in the description box if you are looking to pick up that chandelier object for yourself. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that I suddenly, like I did in the Create a World series, got a brilliant idea as I was making this lot. And it was to download the Cinema Plumbob lot venue thing from the Sims 3 store, the one with the turnstiles and the ticket machine, because that makes sense here, right? What they actually purchase a ticket to is really a true waste of a Sim's money. But yeah, I decided to place that ticket machine down in this lot because it made a lot of sense. I even put in the turnstiles as part of the doors that lead onto the platform, so that Sims have to purchase tickets. I assigned the tickets to different colors and all that jazz. However, I'm running into a problem with the object itself, and the problem is the following. So when my Sim goes to actually when they actually go to purchase the ticket, they're just stuck on the purchase screen. Now, I can press escape and get out of it, it's fine and all that, but it sucks because it doesn't actually function and they don't get the tickets in their inventory. If someone else has had this issue before, please drop down a comment on how you were able to solve it. I have already tried uninstalling and reinstalling the content, so I've done the basics there and I'm still getting the same problem, unfortunately. But if there's no way to solve it, then that's fine, but I do want to use these ticket turnstiles and the ticket machine from that Cinema Plumbob Cinema object. I don't have any idea what it's called. It's like La Cinema something on the Sims 3 store, but it comes with premium content, and I do plan to use that throughout the builds here. I ended up just kind of leaving it in because I kind of feel like just because this object isn't working for me, it could work for some of you guys out there that are looking to download this lot. So yeah, I left it in there just in case it like works for other people and it just doesn't work for me. I'm happy to do that for you guys. I mean, they're not buying tickets to anything. They're buying tickets for vending machines, which is stupid. If we're going to be transparent about the functions that they'll actually gain from them, but yeah, if it's a game object that some of you guys have had issues with, just let me know how you're able to solve it. Again, just like yeah, I've already tried the reinstall method and it just didn't work for me, but like I mentioned before, if it works for other people, I'm happy to just leave the objects in for someone else. Speaking of which, I finally got another food truck parking space added in here. I still have to test it in my game just to see if it works, but that's another Mod The Sims object download that I had. And hopefully, like now that I've got like 3 food truck parking spaces available, it'll start functioning in the game properly. If not, then it'll just show up in your game as a blank parking space, which is fine too. The interior parts of the build really come together quite quickly, and a big reason for that is that I kind of have known all along what I wanted each of the interiors to be. So yeah, the concourse is just a place that prioritizes passenger and commuter movement on foot. And then as we move up each of the levels, it starts to get quieter and quieter, really kind of giving that proper library feel. So like I said, it just kind of comes together quite quickly. and yeah, it's just that this entire time up until now, like I've just been having to deal with the logistics of how this lot would actually function and what actually needs to be put in place for it to be structurally sound and all that jazz. So now comes like really big now comes the fun part. I don't know what I was trying to say there before. Now comes the big fun part, I suppose. So yeah, first floor concourse, it's very basic. I put in a lot of those community trash cans, and those trash cans actually come from the Roaring Heights DLC from the Sims 3 store, so feel free to check that out if you'd like. But yeah, that comes with the Roaring Heights DLC. The world itself, and if you do even bother with the world, I suggest like bundling it, getting it with the boardwalk, roller coaster, and the gold version, because Roaring Heights is honestly the bee's knees in terms of worlds. One of my favorites, honestly speaking, and really well done too. But yeah, the interiors here just really comes together quite quickly. The second floor, I really wanted to have another opportunity where there's some like Juliet balconies and also opportunities to just kind of look down on the floor below you. So having like those multi-level ceilings, or at least like peekaboo, I guess peekaboo floors into the floor below you just kind of adds to the large scale nature of this lot, and that was something that I definitely wanted to do. You'll see me struggle in the beginning. At first I was going to do like some sort of a complicated pattern, but then I completely kiboshed that and just decided that, well, because I couldn't get the western wing to match the eastern wing, that I would just have to improvise a little and just like simplify it, which ended up working better in my opinion anyways. So I decided to do that for each of those wings. Again, the second floor is where you have access to computers, and so because it is a little noisier and because it would also have to contend with the noise of the concourse, I felt that it was appropriate again to put it up there. Besides, people would have their headphones in. I know I've already explained this, but that again is the logic that I used climbing up each of the levels and just designing a different function for each of those. I also wanted to do my best to give Sims an opportunity to like upskill if they need to. So if you have like a writer sim or a sim that needs to get their writing skill up, well, they would just head to the second floor. And if you had a sim that really wanted to gain that boost from, you know, reading cooking or a handy book or a handiness book, I'm losing my ability to talk here, you guys, then you would just send them up onto the third floor where it would theoretically be quieter. Of course, nothing is stopping your sim from just reading it anywhere, even on the concourse level on one of the benches, but you know, the idea that each floor kind of has its own function is certainly something that I had kept in mind here. And because there are actually 4 floors to the library itself, I really had to figure out what that 4th level was going to be. Now, on the 3rd level, the one just below it, obviously, again, it was more focused on actually like reading the books, and yeah, that's the kind of skilling that I wanted there. So that's where you'd actually find the proper bookshelves. But I also put in some private rooms in there as well for Sims that do drafting, because those draft tables, which are used by the stylist and the architecture professions, if I remember correctly, are certainly something that you know, they can be difficult to place in homes and all that, so I decided to place them in those private rooms along with the computer, just in case there was a sim that was really that's trying to become an that's in the stylist or the architecture profession, but they just can't find one of those tables. So they can come to the library. It gives that proper function here. Oh yeah, I also added in a daycare to the second level, and the daycare, again, it's not exactly a dummy room per se, but because daycares can't actually function in The Sims 3. Not unless you start your own home daycare, but that's only on home lots. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself there. So yeah, I decided to designate a little area on the second level dedicated directly towards kids. So you can just read some stories to your sim children, or you can just drop them in the playpen and, you know, be on your merry way. The idea here is just to kind of give like toddlers and babies a place to like take care of them, because I don't know about you guys, but every time I play on the library lot, there's always a collection of kids, toddlers, and babies screaming their ears off. So at least now the sim parents that brought them to the library will have the capabilities to maybe even address their needs. But, you know, we all know townie and NPC behavior, and we know that that won't likely ever happen, even if the object is right there for them. So yeah, that was something I decided to do there. But yeah, I was talking about the fourth floor, and I just kind of wanted to mention that on the fourth floor, I decided to make it like this quiet little cove that you just go up. And again, it's another reading library, but I put in some of those hidden bookcase doors, and I really wanted to show there that there is a little bit of a secret side to the Central Station Library, and that is access to like the high-tech library, if you know what to look for. And in previous builds of a library lot, I used to do it where I tried to make like nearly every skill object available. Now, it's not going to make any sense, and I know that you're probably trying to wrap your head around a sculptor station making sense in a library, which it could if you really put the creativity into it. But in previous versions, I used to like put in like the brain scanner machine and put it behind one of those hidden bookshelf doors. And yeah, I decided to simplify it and to just make it a high-tech library. Like you have access to those hologram computers and all that, just to kind of to simplify that aspect of it, while also giving some new objects that you could access to, because they place like the holographic easel and also the telescope on each of those rooms respectively there. So it gives a reason for Sims to actually access those rooms outside of wanting to use the holographic computer. The half walls that I ended up using came from the Sims 3 store as well. I believe it was one of the Zen sets, if I remember correctly. You guys will just have to like do that research on your own there. But yeah, those half walls came from there, and I thought that they made really nice dividers. And so I just decided to use them throughout, like especially the second and the third floors of the library. So with the Central Station Library kind of finishing up just right before our very eyes, again, it feels like it probably just looks on screen like I have a lot to still do, but it just really wraps up quickly, because the interior, I knew what it was going to be about. It was just like deciding on the style and like the wallpapers and the actual form of this structure in of itself. That was really what took a lot of my time, unfortunately. But yeah, with the finishing of this building here, it actually finishes up the government campus. And in the tour screenshots there, I do some wider shots and some nighttime shots as well, just to show you guys how it looks at night and how it fits in with the rest of the neighborhood there. In terms of like comparing to the other structures, like the observatory tower and the police station and city hall, of course this looks a little smaller, of course. I used of course there a little too much. I do listen to myself once in a while here as I'm speaking, but yeah, this building makes for a nice like medium density structure that just kind of tapers down towards the downtown central business district. And you know, I've zoomed out and I've done like a couple of skyline shots here and there and like looked at how the skyline is forming. And the saving grace in this is that because the tunnels are actually taller than this structure itself, or at least it looks like it, The tunnels kind of help to scale it back as it's increasing in height towards the central business district. And by the time your eyes like wander southwards, like if you're looking at it from a southern angle, hopefully I got some screenshots in there to show you guys when we get to the tour. But as you're looking downwards, as you're looking south from the northern parts of the map, like a southeast vision. Okay, maybe I should, hopefully I've got a screenshot there, but by the time your eyes like kind of make your way to the central business district, which I have yet to build, it'll actually hit the hospital and the stadium first. And that's great because both of those objects, both the rabbit holes that I plan to use are actually going to be very light and well lit. And I plan to use the binder clips structure from Starlight Shores, which came with Showtime. And the reason why I'm choosing that one specifically is because it has a big show venue, because I struggle with big show venues. So I'm just gonna literally copy and paste it and just kind of fit it into the lot there. But yeah, your eye kind of hits that, and then behind those are going to be some more high rises and all of that, including the high rise from Roaring Heights being the business building. So I think that the skyline's okay, in other words. It was a really long-winded way of me saying that I think that the skyline is going to be okay, even with the park in between the tunnels and the rest of the central business district. So as I wrap this up, I'm sure that you're wondering, like, what's next? What are we doing after this? Because we are because with this completes the government campus neighborhood. And to that I say, like, what will be next on our to-do list will be to actually go to the central business district. I'm skipping over the parks for the time being because I really do want to start constructing those high-rise buildings and really give it that city feel, like those high-rise city feel that I know that I can emulate within this world. So I want to get started on that, and then we'll like move into the parks. I have yet to decide whether I want to do the stadium and the hospital before the central business district, or just like maybe do a couple of episodes and speed builds in the central business district and then, you know, skip back over to doing a stadium. So who knows? But yeah, that is going to be where we are heading over into next, which I think will be great. We continue to build Sim City, and, you know, with it taking a more like a taller urban form, I think that is certainly going to do wonders for how the city skyline is going to turn out here, and it also helps to really bring a sense of place. But as I'm sure that you've noticed, like, by the time this episode releases, we would have finished the Creator World series. So what's going to happen with the channel then? Well, I've kind of made an executive decision here that I'm just going to add in another speed build for the week. So you'll get 2 speed builds per week and then another video on Saturdays. So that is the idea that I have going forward. And with that second speed build, I am still kind of deciding whether or not I want to continue building out the neighborhood that this series is focused on, or if I just want to do some random lot builds, or seemingly random lot builds, or maybe just build out a different neighborhood entirely. That might be more logical now that I've said it out loud. So yeah, 2 speed builds per week is likely what is upcoming. If I have to correct myself, I will in my community tab. So yeah, that's what we have to look forward to going forward. It's just more speed builds, and I think you guys are really enjoying these, especially the ones where I actually do a lot of work in. I mean, some of the rabbit hole ones are great and everything, but where I do a lot of work and actually having to do a lot more designing, like with this one, I think that you guys have really enjoyed those so far. So I'm excited to just kind of show you more of that. But yeah, that is going to about do it for today's episode. This was a long one, and it was long to record in terms of actually building the lot. It was also long to record the audio, So this massive project of mine is finally out of my system. Of course, like if you have any feedback, feel free to drop it anytime you'd like. I might do an edit episode sometime in the future. I don't have one planned right now for the government campus neighborhood, but I'm gonna keep an open mind to it. Maybe I just do some spot editing with you guys. Maybe I even brave it and do a live stream. Who knows? But yeah, that's gonna about do it for today's episode. I just want to say again, like, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking it out to this one here. This was a long one, even for you as a watcher, so I really, really do appreciate your time and for watching this project of mine unfold and to build yet another lot in my custom SimCity world. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.